10 to 15 points sometimes, which if you're in a position, sometimes that can stop you out, especially if you're offsides. Scan news here in 8 seconds. So we'll wait for that, and then if we start to fill this gap and respect it, can by respecting it, then we'll see. So here's the news. Let's look at DXY really quick. So you can see a lot of volatility here on DXY, right? Not as replicated on NQ. You'd expect this to pop up, maybe fill this gap, but something to still be careful of. So I'm watching out. If we do want to climb into here, I want to see at least 50% of this gap respected. Let's look at ES. ES filling more of their gap. Still kind of low probability for me. I'm not really liking this macro with the news because I don't want to take a short with the sibi on ES and then it keep running up and go against me, and I don't feel like front running the shorts with taking a sibi in here, sibi short in here, targeting 20 points to downside. Even if it does move, I would rather get a sibi in, discount the dealing range, which if you do take your fib to the current dealing range, we do have 50% up here at the breakaway, so be watching that. Let me take a screenshot of this really quick. I'll send it to predictions. See what that news did on DXY. So starting to drop off, assuming we want to continue down. Let's go to the 5-minute really quick. So assuming we want to close below this gap here, I'll put an alarm. Just an arbitrary gap. I'm not even picking any specific one, but assuming we do want to use that gap, we just did close above this, so watch how we use this potentially as inversion. I'm watching ES as well. This looks like we're still going to dip down into the sell side, 5 points. So I expect NQ to do the same. Still have the sell side from yesterday we didn't tap into. Let me mark that out really quick. Right at here. So watch the sell side down there. Do also have a decently large gap on ES and NQ to the upside above the 8 a.m. swing high. So watch how we potentially sweep down into this 5 points. I'm not in a trade right now, but just something to still watch. So this gap up here did sweep out the London session high from yesterday. I believe it was yesterday, yeah. So at 4 p.m. we came up, swept that out. Nice price action there with the PM macro. I think I did a post in macro review, I believe. Yeah, so last post macro review. Got that nice sweep of sell side with time distortion. Came down, broke up. Got your fill there at roughly 330, 315-ish. Then we climbed aggressively right up into the lunch session high and the London session high. So if you're not using those session ranges, I suggest with that whatever model you're using, whether it's Silver Bullet's extremely helpful, but any model, it could be 2022, Unicorn, Market Excel model, stuff like that. You need to be using, you don't need to, but I strongly suggest that you use these session highs and lows. I just use it's called the ICT kill zone and pivots, this one right here. And it just labels all of the, I used to just manually label it. If you've been here for a while, you've seen me always label out the London high and low with this this purple line like this, right? And this just automatically does it for you. So it does save some time, and it's also nice just visually. You can also see the liquidity that's been untapped. So there's your 5 points on ES from the sibi fill. Looking for a sweep of the session low. There we go. So there's the sell side swept. Looking like a 2022 model here on CL. I just want to screenshot this. I'll put it in non-indices. We'll go back to, so you can see we didn't use it as an inversion fair value gap either. Closed above it, wicked into it, wicked into it, wicked into it again, and then we close back below. So I'm glad I did not take any positions with this on NQ, even though it's showing some weakness. So you can see this gap here from the 950 candle. Look at ES, filled it, then we dip lower, so you could use that also as indication of weakness since this was not filled on that same candle. So we did sweep out sell side on ES as well as the NQ sell side with the London session low. So I would want to see, if I want to flip bullish, I would want to see a closure above, we switched to 2 minute, nope. Closure above 50% of this 3 minute gap. So I know it's 2 minutes technically on the 1, but this price lag right in here is technically one entire gap on the 3. So I'll be looking for a closure above some of these gaps, and then we can look for buy side liquidity targets as well as the hourly gap I mentioned. So this gap right in, not this one, this is from FOMC, but this one right in here. I feel like we do have to work some of this gap a little bit more. We did tap into it, and we have sell side as draw for a higher time frame. So if you want to continue lower, this is all you really need, right? Short-term sweep of buy side filling the gap with a breakaway, technically, since we left the London session high up here. Let me mark that out actually really quick. I'm trading lower, so I'm not going to try and flip bullishly until we do see some disrespective PD arrays, which is what you need to typically flip bias from short to long, whatever the scenario might be. Let's look at YM. YM also took out their sell side, wicked right into the London session low, so nice price action there. We do have a gap right in here, and we'd like to see a closure above it for me to flip bullishly. So put an alarm right up there. DXY is working into this gap here. Now I'm kind of just flipping around, but just want to make sure get everything. So as long as this holds and we continue lower down into this line down here, then you would like to see indices also start to climb. But we're kind of just filling this gap and not filling it and leaving it. We're filling it, starting to work top to bottom. Haven't dipped into discount either. Fell right short of that right at the 10 a.m. candle. So I'm looking for potentially this swing low here. If you want to get some downside movement, watch the swing low. Again, I'm not really favoring anything. Looks like a low probability morning. I mentioned that in the daily bias post as well. So whenever you have a high time frame target, specifically on the daily and higher, obviously the weekly will have more weight to it, but a daily or a 4-hour liquidity or imbalance that you've been anticipating for at least a couple days or maybe even a day, and it goes up and attacks that level, or goes down and attacks the level and sweeps it out or fills the gap. If that happens, most times the next day is considered low probability. It's because you don't know if it's going to either continue through that liquidity pool or continue through the imbalance, or it's going to reject instantly off that imbalance. So whenever you have a 50-50, if you don't know if price is going to go up or down, that's considered low probability in ICT standards. So what you do is you just use intraday price action. If there's news, you wait for after the news. And then for me, I just use the hourly chart. I have the hourly chart pulled up on another screen, and that's just my short-term draw on liquidity. So I'll be looking at the hourly chart of where do I think this next candle will expand to, up or down, and why. So is there a liquidity pool that's been profitable for quite some time? Is there a gap that needs to be filled before we start heading the other way? So all of that is good when you are expecting a low probability day. Obviously, if it's nothing appears that you don't like, there's no reason you should be taking a trade. And it's also a good practice to just sometimes just sit on your hands and just wait, because not every day, people preach that every single day is a trading day. That's not true. I don't think that, especially if you have a specific model and you're not flipping between models and breaking your rules, every day is not a trading day. There will be days where your model does not appear, and there will also be days where the model does not perform as expected, which is why you have a stop loss. So it's good to anticipate these kind of days, because you don't want to have false hopes of thinking you have to trade every single day, and then if you try and trade, trying to go long off this inversion for value gap and get stopped out, you don't want to have this loop of revenge trading on a day that you shouldn't have been trading in the beginning, right? And I'm sure everyone has made this mistake before, and I'm speaking from experience here. It's wise to let these days either just play out and you tape read, or you let them play out and you try and look for your model, and if it doesn't form, you just walk away. And that doesn't mean you're not productive. It's not an unproductive day. It's still productive, meaning you're still looking for your model, you're still doing your job as a trader, and you're still managing risk, which is the number one thing. So even if that model doesn't form, you know that you didn't miss anything that day. Because I would rather be sitting in front of the chart from 9:50 to 10:10, whenever your model is, and see that it's low probability and be happy with not taking a trade, than expecting a low probability day, not waking up, not doing your morning stuff, and then you come back at the charts an hour later and you already missed the move. For me, that would be more frustrating than just sitting here, being patient and waiting. That was kind of a long spiel, but hopefully someone got some sense out of that. We're still trading around this inversion for value gap here, and we haven't climbed or closed above it. Yes, we do have some SMT divergence here, and our YM just dipped through there, swing low once more after filling this gap. Very rough price action there. This is why you kind of don't really want to look at YM. This candle is really weird to me, and then it quickly just rejected lower. Typically, you'll see this candle right here, strong candle, immediate rebalance up to the low, and then continuation. The fact that it came all the way up, filled the gap, and then it came lower, a little weird to me. So it's definitely still low probability. Let me put that in predictions chat really quick. So I'm probably just going to be waiting for displacement out of this range. So either displacement past the New York AM low, right down here, or proper displacement upside would be above this larger gap. So if we were to look for longs, it would have to be quick scalpy kind of stuff, probably up to into these gaps. But since we did kind of sweep out liquidity with the 9:30 opening as well, and work into the reclaim for 5-minute fair value gap, for highs to be swept is a little sketch to me. This New York AM high, though, we may sweep it out in the PM session, or maybe late into the AM. Not sure though. You can see all these wicks as well. Whenever you see these kind of wicks up and down in these smaller candles on NQ, you can expect low probability stuff. Same thing on ES. So whenever you see lots of wicks up and down on NQ, indicates low probability. You can kind of identify it prior to the 9:30 equities open. You can see sometimes like this, these smaller ranged candles with wicks up and down. A lot of time you see this in pre-market. Obviously not in here. That's London. But sometimes in pre-market like this, Asia range, you get this choppy price action. So whenever you see that prior to the equities open, expect low probability. On ES, it's a little bit different. You have, I guess technically still these small candles, but lots of volume imbalances is a clear sign on ES. So whenever you have these doji candles and volume imbalances in between the gaps, a lot of them, you can see all the wicks here, kind of just very choppy price action, volume imbalances, stuff like that. That's what you want to indicate as low probability for ES. Starting to dip lower here. Don't know if I have the sell side all the way marked out. Doesn't look like I do. So what is this at 14618.75? right up here. That's the daily sell side all the way down there, 14,618. So we'll see if we want to aggressively dump off into there. Do have some fair value gaps in here. Watch this to be used as potentially as a breakaway gap. And the 2 minute as well. 2 minute gap in there. Now, whenever you have a time-based model, you want to wait for time to do the heavy lifting. Now, what do I mean by that? I just mean that whenever you have these consolidation points, typically price has an objective. Price is not just meandering around here doing nothing, but instead price has an objective and it's waiting for the specific time to complete that objective. So that could be liquidity pools or imbalances. So you have to wait for either silver bullet or different macro times, and you want to wait for the time element to come into play, and then you can look for trading models. This was extremely prevalent yesterday in the PM session. If you have time, and if you look at the macro review picture, the last one I posted, if you look from roughly from 12:45 all the way till I would say maybe 2:50, the 2:50 macro provided, but 2:50 all the way to 12:45, you have just time distortion right in there. Just up and down price movements, nothing clean, a lot of just consolidation if you look in the higher time frame. And then at 2:50 you have your 2:50 macro, displaces into sell side, so 20 points through that. Then you have another macro at 3:15. Magically you start to reverse right there, and then you get your buy signal at 3:30 to go long, targeting the buy side, and then you have your sweep of New York lunch high as well as the London high on ES. So this should not be scary to anyone. You should not be trying to take trades and jam trades in here. A lot of newer traders will see this, and every single time a candle pops up above a high or low, they think it's a breakout, and they'll go long or go short, whatever it may be. Like this candle, a lot of people may be entering short in here because we saw this inversion, but then the next candle pops right back up. So you need a couple candles to close below or above the swing high to confirm that you're going in one direction. Makes sense? So that doesn't mean you're going to be anticipating any break of structure either. So you're not going to be anticipating this breakdown. Instead, you're going to be waiting for us to retrace either into fair value gaps if that's your model, or some sort of other setup within a time-based structure. So technically this is your silver bullet short. So if your 10 a.m. is right here, and your 10:10, I preach 10:10 as the true silver bullet start for me. But here's your 10:10 end of the macro, technically start of the silver bullet now. Start to displace lower, fill this gap here, displace lower, for value gap in here and here. Let me mark these out actually. So right in here you have two sibis. So this could be your silver bullet short model. Obviously your stop would have to be, if you're using this one, above this gap entirely, so you could use this high or this high as your stop loss. For me, I've stopped trading these early on into the actual hour while I wait for 10:30 to 10:45. Let's see, ES doing ES quickly displacing to the sell side while I'm doing the same, and DXY is kind of having some trouble popping up here. Just up that short-term buy side right at there. Let's look at the higher time frame. Just also fill this gap. So with DXY filling this gap here, if we do head lower, then indices should pop up. So whenever you see DXY and the indices both in tandem, meaning they're both moving in the same direction, that's also an indication of low probability setups for ICT concepts. Okay, so you want to see, preferably, now I have all of this data in the Q&A post for low probability. So if you go to Q&A, then click on the low probability tab, this is all there, so you don't have to remember any of this or write it down. but I'm just recapping. So if you see all the indices, so YM, NQ, and ES all moving preferably in mostly the same direction, so you can see it's pretty clear here, right? And then DXY doing the complete opposite. So you would want to see an uptrend starting from 1006 all the way to 1019. You can see 1006 is right around here. Started an uptrend. Then we started at 1014. We started to head lower. So that's a good indication we may want to reverse at the low point. But obviously you're not going to anticipate the smart money reversal. Instead, you're going to wait for the model to form. So if we want to go long, preferably we see a trade up through these gaps, come back and tap into them using them as inversion, whatever it may be, and then go long using that. It's also technically a breaker in here. Low, high, lower, low, right? Up close candle be in here. It's very, very rough, so I wouldn't use it personally, but unicorn technically still in there. Obviously, you're not going to be fighting against the higher time frame point of direction. So up here on the top right, if I hover over it, this thing pops up, but if I don't hover up, you can see it. So that's the D1615. I mentioned this yesterday in the stream. That's just indication of the specific candle direction. So the daily candle right now is painting red. Same thing with the 60-minute and the 15-minute. So whenever these are in line, you don't want to be on the 1 minute and trying to go long when all three of these are headed lower. That's just simple. That's just retail stuff, to be honest. But even with ICT concept, that's useful. So you're going to anticipate first that these are used as resistance. So we do climb up into here and get some respect out of it, especially with it being silver bullet time. Second would be anticipate a trade through them and then use that as a gap. Q&A has been a great resource. That sounds good, my man. Yeah, if you have any extra stuff or any questions, everyone has access to post anything in that chat. So if you have anything that you want to share to other people that you found useful, or any just ICT/market psychology related questions, you can post it in there, and then we can have a discussion about that. So we're tapping into this lower sibi now. I think it's also a 3-minute gap. Oops, I just typed that in chat. 3-minute gap right in there. So watch now how you want to respect this. 20 points from here, basically back down towards the sell side. Personally, I'm not going to take this trade. I'm going to wait another 8 minutes until we get some other time-based element layered on top of the silver bullet. But close below, so a good indication of weakness. So watch, technically if we do displace down into 727-ish, 728, that would be your 20 points. Yeah, roughly 727. I'm going to keep the chart clean for the time being though. See what ES is doing. ES climbing into their tiny 1-minute gap right up in here. YM doing the same. DXY is dropping off aggressively. So depending on how we react to this gap, so this is an indication of, again, of low probability, right? So DXY is dropping off with NQ also kind of dropping off, but anticipating this gap fill, right? So whenever you see that, I'm not going to take a position. Yes, if you saw, we do have a tiny bisi right in here as well. So watch how we hold this gap. Now, preferably if you do want to remain bearish, you see a tap into here, close below, which we get 2 of that, and then a close below this bisi entirely. So let me mark out this sibi up here. You can see it. So tap into the sibi, close below again. Starting to not even tap into this higher one. but you'd like to see a closure completely past this gap. NQ starting to tap into their sibi once more. So you can see we respected it so far. Tap into the sibi again. Still nothing from me. Would like to see a closure above this gap and then maybe work into here from flip bullish. You can see we're filling the 2-minute gap decently. Closed below still. 3-minute worked into it, 4-minute worked into it, 5-minute also filling it. If you have any questions, you can put them up in the prophecy chat as well while we wait. So filled slightly higher. Still not liking shorts in here, especially if DXY is dropping off. Oh, DXY is starting to pop up again. So we'll see now. This could be a potential. As long as DXY is climbing, we should be fine. I'm going to have patience though. I'm going to wait for 10:30. Even if we get 20 points from here, I'm fine with missing it. That's your 20-point line right there. Yeah, I got you. Can you review CL? So right now, so we did sweep out this short-term sell side that I was looking at. We are past 1010 as well. Got displacement to the upside, as well as the New York lunch high, as well as this swing high up here has also been left unfilled. So if you look at it from a 5-minute perspective, I'm sure you'll see this run down into this gap here, potentially. There's a 5-minute gap maybe? And right in here, yeah. Worked into the 5-minute gap, starting to climb above. Do have this sibi that I'm aware of. So watch how we hold this 2-minute gap in here. So watch how we hold this 2-minute gap. I know that we did kind of just fill this, which is technically a 2022 model short. So I'm watching that. But if Silver Bullet is your model, then potentially we do fill this 2-minute gap, close preferably within 50% of this lower gap right in here on the 1-minute, and then we start to climb back up for a New York AM high. Makes sense, hopefully. Oh, looks like we're getting it so far. Closing above this gap now. That's what I'm favoring. CNQ, we're starting to still climb into the sibi. No quick reaction lower, so I'm glad I didn't take a short there. Still kind of working into this gap. Let's see what DXY is doing. I'm sure it's starting to drop off now. There we go. So it looks like we're starting to get in tandem, which is a good sign. I want to see how we react to this higher sibi. Starting to close above these gaps. Let me send a screenshot of this actually. So this is why you wait for time. This is a great example. You had technically your Silver Bullet short, right? If you wanted to use that. Got some reaction off of it, then quickly smacked there. So that's why didn't take a short there, waited for 10:30. And I'm glad I waited, because right at 10:29, what is this, 10:28 candle? Popped up right through the sibis. We'll see now if we form a fair value gap right in here with this candle closure at 10:29. Then we have a gap that we can use with the inversion fair value. So these should now be used as inversion. Meaning if we come down and tap into it, you want to see it respect off of it. So if this gap forms and we climb with this 10:30 candle, I'll be looking to go long with that in mind. So it looks like we're starting to get decent closure here. So there's the fair value gap with the bisi lined on top of it. So watch now how we potentially fill that gap right in there. Could actually put a limit order. I'll put a limit order right on this inversion fair value gap. Stop loss below the low. So there's our fill. Preferably one push lower. Then you look for your 20 points up to the swing high, right around here. Do have these gaps you could also use as a target, right up in there. So you could push this up to here if you wanted to. I'm just going to wait for the 20 to be hit on this screen at least. So 762 was my fill on the other screen. Cut in kind of late. I wanted to see another fill lower into the inversion. Didn't get that. You can see a candle body closing above the gap entirely. Good sign for bullish price action there, right? I'm going to take 3 off on this screen at 82. Let me do that really quick. So got a nice push up there. Reacted off that inversion. Now if you wanted to, you could drag stop to the low end of this, which is what I'm going to do. I'm not expecting a full fill of this gap anymore. I want to see it, especially if we can close above this sibi here. Should see a continuation quickly into the 40 points. Now if you wanted to really be aggressive with the stop placement, you could drag it up to break even here, or potentially up to the swing low. But I'm anticipating it to leave more of the gap open. If we want to come down and run into the gap once more, that's fine. But still assuming that this up here should be hit. If you look at the 3 minute really quick, yeah, no swing highs really on the 3 minute. So closed bullishly above 50% of this gap, right? Let me zoom in here. Draw 50% roughly around here, closed above it. Wick down, immediate rebalance. Want to see a closure preferably above the gap, or at least within the upper 50% portion of this tiny gap, and then a quick run up into the 400, 20 points. So never see 400 on NQ, that's just your 20-point mark, right up to there. Now if you do measure 50% of this dealing range, so from New York AM high to New York AM low, we are still within discount, so you want to see preferably a return back into premium, which is above 14,785, right? So I'll actually screenshot this and I'll send it over to predictions chat. Looking for premium. So this line up here, we'll use this, I guess, as the premium line, so we can clean up the chart a little bit. So this will switch it to blue. Premium of dealing range. Hopefully that's good enough, you can see it. Starting to respect this sibi a little bit. Just waiting for price to do its own thing though. So watch how we fill this gap in here. Potentially returning back into the inversion. Could also see it's returning back into the unicorn setup, right? The breaker in here. This up closing candle. So the macro end time for this short window is at 10:45. So preferably you do see a run on liquidity, which we do have a swing high up here at 14,786 as your liquidity target. So you would like to see, or even this premium dealing range swing high, you'd like to see a return into that swing high before the macro end. So we'll keep this here just as not a direct line in the sand. Obviously the algorithm won't be perfect every single time, but sometimes you'll get either a run before it or run after it, but preferably you do see a run before this line of the liquidity. So I also need to see a closure above the sibi. Once we see a closure above the sibi, next two candles will pop up into the 20 and then to the premium end of the dealing range. I think a stop at the low end of this gap is perfectly fine. If it does want to return all the way back into here, I'm glad that we got stopped out. I want to see a quick run using these gaps. See what DXY is doing. We want to see DXY drop off. Potentially we do have this gap in here. So unless DXY doesn't drop off, then we should get it. If DXY climbs through this, so I want to see preferably this kind of price action. Start to dip lower. If DXY uses this as support and we start to climb up, then that would be a good indication that NQ would also probably hit their stop loss. But it looks like we got a nice reaction off the premium end of that gap here, the bisi. Looking for a return back to, you can see the 15-minute gap in here as well, right? Switch this to the 5, you probably will see another gap. Yep, so the 5-minute gap also right up at the swing high here at 14,788. So this candle right here is of concern to me. Waked into the sibi. Unless this candle starts popping back up, we may climb lower, or head lower I mean. You can see the candle body still respecting the premium end of this gap in here. Now let's look at the 3-minute. See the 3-minute inversion as well. 4-minute inversion, or filling the 4-minute gap and the 3-minute gap, tapping into it. Can remove this. So this gap right in here. Right? 5-minute gap as well. Quick reaction off of that gap. Now I could have added another contract right in there, which I did on the other screen. Now preferably you want to see it close above the sibi, like I said before. But nice reaction out of that 3-minute gap, layered free rally gap. Closed above it completely. Still have, what is that, 7 minutes left, roughly 7 minutes left in the short macro here. Still having some trouble get over this sibi here. Kind of just meandering around. Now I'm glad we didn't move that stop up to here. Would have been a stop out. So it's good to switch between the 1 all the way to the 5 and look for those kind of gaps. Sometimes they form. You'll get this choppy price action. If price doesn't quickly spool, typically it's going to return into another fair value gap. You can look to this dealing range from low to high. Dipped into discount of that, seeking premium. So CGFX, he's a really good guy when it comes to reading price action and reviewing it. So I think I sent a link to one of his videos. Yeah, so if you look in the trading hall chat and you scroll, about to get this 20 points. scroll up, you can see the CGFX video. He talks about the dealing range premium to discount parent dealing ranges, IO feds, all in that one video. So extremely helpful if you want to learn more about that. I'll probably do my own separate video on YouTube going in depth about it. Nice run up back into the sibi. Still kind of respecting it. I want to see it close above. Once we get a closure above here, so look for a closure above this premium end. Come on. What, 3 points away? Roughly. This is a point where I'm comfortable dragging the stop loss to here. So I want to see it push up through here. Last 5 minutes. Liquidity remains this swing high. Up here. Man, it literally got within 1 point getting filled out. Nice bullish candle closure above the gap once more. Want to see this used as inversion. So if we do tap into it, I'd like to see it used as support. We also have an order block right in here. Just waiting for this exit fill. Alright, this next candle most likely will pop up through it, as long as we close bullishly above the gap. Using it as inversion now. As well as tapping into the order block here. Didn't close above it again, so of concern to me. We want to see a quick reaction above the gap again. Got 2 minutes, 3 minutes left. Yeah, roughly 2.5 minutes left in this tiny macro. I feel like Bob Ross watching these candles paint. Closing above the inversion once more, and here comes the take profit, hopefully. Come on. One candle. There we go. Up to premium the dealing range. Smack through, look at this sibi now. And guess what time it is? Prior to this 10:45 close. Perfect execution there. Look for my last partial on the other screen. Filling of this gap up here. Can move this now. So there's premium dealing range hit. I'd like to see that 1 minute gap fill. I'm moving stop to break even. I'm moving stop to right up here. And that'll be, I think, roughly 27, 28 points from the entry point at 62, 47.62. Take one off there. We'll wait for the last one. So there is your 10:30 to 10:45 macro. Let me send a screenshot of this. We'll put it up in the predictions chat and futures trading. So once this last contracting on the screen gets filled, I'll put this one first. So that one's in predictions chat. The other screen, I'm waiting for this sibi up here. Not the breakaway gap, but this one up here. So once we clean that, then we'll look for, I'll send the other screenshot. Simple enough, huh? Didn't get a fill, don't recommend to enter. Hey man, it's not a signal service, but hopefully you're able to capture that. First day here, membership paid for itself. Oh, and there's the last fill. So sibi fill right there. And there is the exit. Let me take a screenshot of the other screen so you can see. Man, now it's pumping up. Beautiful trade model right there. So patience pays, doesn't it? Easy 27, 30-ish points. I'll send a screenshot of that. Second screen into futures trades from the NinjaTrader account. So got 2 entries there, went 4 long on the fill, got a kind of a poor fill. Was waiting for another gap down. Then entered another 1 contract on this candle right here. Took 1 partial off at the swing high premium dealing range, 2 at 20 points, and then another one at the fill of the gap. Yep, definitely random, guys. Definitely a random time. If this doesn't prove it's algorithmic, I don't know what will. Time to do some heavy lifting. Yes, sir, man. I'm about to hit the gym soon. Got some other stuff I got to attend to, but I'm probably going to hit some chest or maybe legs today. I think we'll go legs today. That was a great trade. Thanks, man. No problem, my man. Yeah, I'll send the indicator. If you want this is just the name of it. I'll send a screenshot of this. Does that work for you? I'll send a screenshot of all of these ones. So it's the, oh, actually, I don't have it starred. Never mind. Let me just do this. That's probably good, right? So there is the indicators. I just sent it right there. So new week new dog, kryptonite. That's the new week opening gap stuff. All this, and then the time frame continuity is the one in the corner, and then the ICT kill zones pivots is these lines. And we're just magically all this selling pressure, you know, coming into the market right at this previously outlined fair value gap. Yeah, you gotta love that selling pressure right there. So perfect displacement. You can see what candle is this, right? 1045, thinking right up into that fair value gap right up there. Yeah, selling pressure. So I think we'll call that a stream, right? Hopefully everyone was able to learn something or capture that move right there at the end. And that's just a perfect demonstration of why you want to wait for those macro times, especially even in silver bullet. I know people probably went short here. There's definitely people on Twitter who were complaining about going short here and getting stopped out, but can't tell me that this macro doesn't work. What is that, day like 16 of it working in a row? Something like that. So yeah, if you have any questions, shoot me a DM. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Or if you want PDFs on any backtesting of specific macros, specific trading models, it's always open DMs, so shoot me a DM. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, thanks for everyone for joining. I will see you guys most likely tomorrow, hopefully with some good price action. Until then, stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Yes, sir. W stream.